Bruce. I'm sorry about that. I did a speed test. Everything's 100%. So then I did a it was YouTube connecting to my browser. So I closed the browser, and then started again. I'm just going to turn this light on. Bugger. Is that battery flat? I just changed it. Can you get that battery? Hello, welcome everyone. I've got a bit of a problem with the battery there, so it's a little dark on that side. But anyway, hi everyone. Let me just go back, see who's here. Torbjörn, us, Mike, first in class today. Hey, I was reading your book again this morning too. Gee, I enjoy reading it. That's Mike's book, Shingi Tai. I have to be honest, I haven't read it from cover to cover. I've gone in and looked at the table of contents and referred to sections of it. I'm just going to see if I can do something about that light too. But anyway, yeah, I've been really enjoying that. Torbjörn, us, good morning. Harry, Herman, us, Frank, Frederick Granquist. I said Frank, us. Oh, please. Well, I sent the books off to you, Frederick, the logbooks. So I sent 9 off, and I packaged them in 2 packages of 5 and 4 for you and Torbjörn. So hope they arrive soon. Us, New Zealand suicide. Please remind me of your actual name again. I know as soon as you say it, I'll be embarrassed that I forgot. Marco, Paul Kniep from Germany. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming all the time. Technical glitch. Yeah, I had a technical glitch, but it's sorted out. Francis, comment ça va, mon ami? Here we are. Great. The image looks great. Light not. Oh, it's okay. So well, if the image is okay, then I won't worry about the battery for that light. Yeah, okay. As long as we can see. Yeah, good. All working now. I'm just reading through the messages. Raj Kumar from Nepal. Namaste. Good. Gaza. Yeah, no worries, mate. Appreciate you coming. Us, Paddy. Nice to chat to you this morning too. Mike. Oh, good. Okay, if everything is. Dave, Avola. Nice to see you. Rochelle. Us. No worries. Good to see you. Harry. Well, no, I haven't read the book about Japan's last living true ninja. I must admit it may be a while before I get around to it too. Look, I was going to read a couple of sections today. The first thing I want to do is actually read from the logbook, because what I've done in the logbook is I've put different sections on how to take advantage of the logbook. And it's actually someone who got their logbook and they said, that just those few pages in the beginning of the logbook has changed his whole approach to training. So I might just read that, because I think it's interesting stuff. It's not brand new, but it's really worth reading over. So let me just go over it first. If you've got any questions or comments, by all means, let me know. The internet may have been, Harry's just mentioned, been working on the lines at the bottom of the mountain, and that's true. And it is raining pretty heavily outside, so it's all got an effect on it. Okay, so I'm just going to read initially, as I said, from the logbook there, and I'll go from there. So if you've got any comments whilst I read, by all means, put them down. This logo, this symbol here, that's mine. I just made it up. It's not like it's some esoteric Japanese secret symbol. Okay, it's something I did that goes with a block is a lock, is a blow, is a throw. So I just did that as a logo, and I might even get a T-shirt made with it. Okay, so why a logbook? This logbook is simple to keep, so there should be minimal resistance to using it. Too complex or too time-consuming means it won't be used for long. Easy to complete. Think of less than 60 seconds for an entry. means more use. A logbook shouldn't stress you out. It's a guide and a reference, not an imperative. Know where you are, where you're going, and what you need to get there. Review things regularly. Okay, then I run through the 7-stage Kumite mastery, which we know about, but it's always worth going over again. Stage 1, default position and gaze. So that means your default fighting stance and your gaze. So that's the 2-word descriptor for level 1 is shape and gaze. 2, dominant head position with basic footwork. So that's head and feet, dominant head position, footwork. 3, survival and defensive shape. So that means know your survival techniques, how to block, and know your fundamental shapes. If your shape is this, you're going to be a lot easier to kick and hit. 4, defend and counter. So now we go from survive and defend to defend and counter. And it's really important to separate those two. Tiger as Tigre Azteca. That's it. Yeah, good on you. Good on you, Michelle. Rochelle. Yeah, I hope you got that paper. You did. Yeah, I've been chatting to Rochelle through email. What logbook is this? Is this something? Yes, it is, Tigre. It's the new logbook that I've put out. And if you have a dojo, it's good because you're able to reprint them with your own logo on. We sort that out. Al O'Farrell, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming. Okay, so we go from stage 3, which is survival and defense, to stage 4, which is defense and counter. And you have to have them in order, because if you try to just go in and win the fight straight off, but you don't have your defense and footwork and head position, everything, it's just never going to work. You spend all your years as a black belt trying to re-educate yourself about things you should have done as a white belt and a blue and through the colored belts. That's what the color belts are for, So level 4, defend and counter. Level 5, distance and angle control. So the 2-word descriptor, distance, angles. Level 6, creative control. So we call that level My Karate. So that's where you start to be a little creative and realize that your body shape is different to his, and so on. And then the final stage is dominant presence, which is Mushin, or no mind. Okay? And then what you do is you cycle those, and by keeping a record of the number of rounds you have, and in the logbook we have a place where you do that. You keep a record of the number of rounds of Kumite you have, and then when you hit 50, that's when you move on to the next level. So you're doing all of them, but your focus is one to the other. Then you loop back again. When you finish 350 rounds, you loop back and recheck your default position. Okay, and anyone who's been training for any length of time will tell you you have to constantly recheck your default position, because it's very easy to habits to creep in, especially as you get a little older. Your body becomes to ossify, it becomes a little stiffer, and you don't even realize that your posture has changed completely. And you think you're doing exactly the same until you see a video of yourself and you go, whoa, my back is bent. Okay, now, the 8-step formula for grappling. So don't forget, we include grappling. Karate means empty hand. So it's not just the punch and kick. You got the 5 range. You got the kick, the punch, the headbutt, elbow, stand-up grapple, and ground grapple. We all have to do this. And even gyakute, what they call gyakute. Remember last week we were talking about gyakute, which is actually a form of hand grappling, okay, or even tegumi, they used to call it in Okinawa. It's literally, grappling is the word, which wasn't used back then, but now is more commonly used. 8-step formula for grappling. So 1, you isolate the skill. So you have to learn a new skill. You've got to isolate it. 2, you drill that skill slow. So let's say someone's on top of you and they're raining punches down upon you. What do? Most people freak out and put their arms up. The next thing you know, they get a broken arm. So you have to break the lie on your back, having someone aggressing punches at you, going from there to being able to not only escape and finish and get on top and finish them if you want, or escape. So that is a single technique which is broken down into a series of skills. And the first skill will be, if you're on your back and they're on top of you, first skill will be to slightly get on your side and come on the inside so that you can counter those punches. Then the next skill is you're going to lock that arm in, control it, use your angles, shape up properly, get your head out of the way, do the bridge, roll over, don't get caught between his legs again, keep the pressure on his leg, come up, hop over, get control on top, and now you can finish. Okay, well, that's a series of techniques. So what you do is you isolate it. So the first one you isolate is being on your back and preventing him from being able to improve his position. All right. So when I say isolate a skill, there might be 10 skills involved in being underneath to being back on top. So you isolate one of them. Then you drill that skill slowly, slowly, slowly. And then you gradually increase the speed until you're drilling it fast. Step 4 is drill the skill slow in the appropriate flow. So you've learnt that particular skill, how to prevent him from improving his position, and you put it back into the whole flow, how to prevent him from improving his position all the way to where he is under you and you're on top and you're running away or finishing him. Okay, so you put that back in the flow and drill it slowly. Then you speed up, gradually build the skill, drill the skill fast in the appropriate flow, and then yakusoku drilling. Yeah, so we know yakusoku from yakusoku kumite, and just like yakusoku kumite, which means prearranged sparring, well, we do yakusoku rolling as well. So you say to your partner, let's roll, and then they come into the mount. And then they start off with low resistance and gradually build up the resistance. Okay, and then jiu, as in jiu kumite, then it's free rolling. So what you're doing now is you're actually competitively rolling with someone of better, equal, or lower skill. And what you do with each of those varies. What's Clarence? Good to see you from Africa. Boy, oh boy, you've been hit with the COVID over there, so I hope you're safe. Take care, Clarence. And then finally, the 8th step of the 8-step formula is discuss on the fly, reassess, adjust, repeat. What do I mean discuss on the fly? Whilst you're drilling, your partner catches you with the same thing all the time. It's like, dude, I'm getting you with that arm bar or chicken wing or wrist lock or whatever every time. Okay, well, what am I doing? Well, every time you go to drop your weight here, you're lifting your arm. As soon as you lift your arm, I'm getting underneath your arm. You can't do that. So try moving your weight and dropping your elbow. That's what I mean by discussing on the fly. We do that in Kumite as well. Sometimes it's hard if we're doing Kumite for the purpose of tournament prep. So you're working on the idea of you like that painting? I love that painting. That's one of my better paintings. No, sorry, I got that wrong. That's not one of my paintings. That's one of Van Gogh's paintings. You can't necessarily stop every round. Some guys try it, and they use it as a way to get out of hard training. They'll stop and go, oh, that was good. You got me with a good front kick. Oh, boy. But that's not what you do. What you do is, at the end, what we do anyway, at the end of the Kumite session, we'll sit in a circle while we're stretching, and we'll ask the 3 magic questions, which you know what they are already. What did I do well? What didn't I do well? What can I do about it? And we'll go round in the circle and ask the students these questions. We'll go, oh, Sal, what did you do well? Actually, my footwork was a bit better today. What didn't you do well? Well, my weight's coming forward on my right leg when I throw the punch, so right punch. Weight's coming forward on my left leg when I throw the right punch. I'm not getting any power. Okay, what are you going to do about it? All right, I'm going to go back, concentrate, maybe work a bit of makiwara, or next time I do it, I'm going to concentrate on, you see, so you work this process. So that's what I mean by discuss on the fly, reassess, adjust, and repeat. RAR, reassess, adjust, and repeat. Okay, going on. Concepts to train by. Come back here and review this from time to time. Good reminders for training well every session. 1, keep a log of all training. Keep it short. Complete immediately after training. Memory is unreliable. Train with full attention. Single-minded focus is key to progress and injury prevention. When I say memory is unreliable too, one thing you'll find, I've got a section in the back here. You see this section here? Let me show you. With all the squares. Well, remember, you write the details of what you're doing and the fine detail, and then every time you do 10, You fill in a square. Well, if you fill in those squares, that's 1,000 reps. And that is very revealing, because in your head, you think you've done a whole bunch when actually you've done like 20. When you keep a record of it, you keep yourself accountable, and accountability means an awful lot, especially in what we do, because there are too many people who aren't accountable. Oh, Sal, good to see you. Thanks for coming. Okay, keep a log. Train with full attention. So single-minded focus is key to progress and injury prevention. Train with a clear goal. Without a goal, it's playing, not training. Goals give clarity. Plan ahead. So in every session, your instructor plans what's going on, but in your head, you're already focusing on one principle, one key core principle that you want to focus on. 4, safety first. Injury prevention is the first goal of all training. When in doubt, pull back. Train today so that tomorrow's training is the best it can be. That's from my friend Ian King. Ian King from King Sports International, I think, is probably one of the most gifted strength conditioning coach, athletic preparation coaches in the world. And if you want to know about how to train properly, look for Ian King online, King Sports International. He's probably the most plagiarized coach too. There are a lot of coaches around the world, strength and conditioning coaches, and that means, every sport, every professional team has a strength and conditioning coach. And I've been involved in a lot of professional sports. I know Paddy Pinto has too. And I can tell you, some of these strength and conditioning coaches are a nightmare. They're doing more injury to the players, but they're very good at the sales. They've got the team convinced that they're pretty good at what they do. But the reality is all they're doing is causing injury. So anyway, Ian King is the main man. He's very, very good. 5, your training partner's progress is as important as your own. It's an attitude. His progress is your progress. Shin Gi Tai, mind, technique, body. Mind is expressed through the body. Body is expressed through technique. Technique is expressed through willpower. Condition the body so it can handle the forces the mind generates. Technique requires a powerful mind, will to be complete. Technique before conditioning. Mind controls all. Master skills and focus on basics. Let conditioning support skills, not replace them. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Daniel, good to see you, man. No worries. Glad you made it. Be careful down there. They've got an outbreak out of your area. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. First, be accurate in all of the steps, then increase speed. Leverage over force. Archimedes over Newton. That's what we call it in the dojo. If we say to someone in the dojo, Archimedes over Newton, they know exactly what we're talking about. What we're saying is use leverage before you use muscular strength. Keep strength in reserve. Use as much of your body against as little of his as possible. And that makes sense whether it's stand up or on the ground. If I can focus an optimal amount of my body power in as small a surface as possible and aim right on the tip of his jaw or the tip of his nose or solar plexus, well, then obviously you're going to get, that's what fighting's all about. That's what Sosai meant by Ichigeki Hissatsu, or one punch, certain death. That's all it was. Maximal leverage, using more and more of my body against less and less of his. 10, create space with bridges, hip movement, and sprawls. It's about mobile, flexible hips. So that's specifically for grappling. But you can translate certain things of that into the stand-up. 11, a lot of this is for, so some of the stuff we've done there is good for stand-up, but I've also got mentioned some principles that are specific to grappling too. So 11, grips before transition. Know when to let go and where to re-grip. Gripping accurately and early saves energy and reduces his options. Transition to improve position. Drilling flows is drilling transitions. Time and speed come from mastering flows. 13, be aware of your base. Move so you can apply the brakes and still keep your balance. Salsa used to say that the first one to lose his balance is the one to lose the fight. 14, control the head and you control the body. Where the head goes, the body follows. Remember that. When even in stand-up, quite often someone will put their head in what they call the pocket. The head is right here and their body is faced and they're just digging in. And as long as their head is here, it's very hard for you to do anything. So the first thing you have to do is don't worry about all the punches. First thing you have to do is get that head out of the way and reposition your head. Okay, so head determines so much. And the other thing too is if someone tries to come and take your legs or something, I mean, if you don't know the correct technique of how to stop a double or a single leg, one thing you can remember is your primary line of defense is the head. If you can stop their head and control their head from pushing you, you'll 80% of the time at least be able to stuff their attempt at taking you down. 15, breathe. Out on contraction, in on expansion. Well, isn't that funny? I wrote this before. This goes back a fair while. Oh, that's so fascinating. Connect the breath to the steps of the flow. Because remember, last week we talked about, or the week before, we talked about Funakoshi's book where he describes what Sosai calls the Iki no Chosei, or breath control. He describes it as the expansion and contraction of the body. Well, there you go. I just realized that this goes back before I'd even read that, and it says, breathe out on contraction, in on expansion. Well, there you go. How about that? So it makes sense to us too. 16, enjoy. Take training seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. Enjoy, be enjoyable. 17, K350 in stand-up. Work the 7 stages of Kumite mastery, 50 rounds at a time. Repeat every new year, every quarter, every grading, as often as you can. And 18, in grappling, embrace T250. Embrace the tap. It is the secret key to mastery. 50 taps for 1 step. Keep a record from the beginning. Have the mindset of taking the initiative and control the offense. If you don't go according to plan, if things don't go according to plan, having trained T250 will make a difference. The T means tap. 50 taps with every round, just as in Kumite, the K of K350 means Kumite. Repeat with each new skill level. So the 5 T250, 50 times 5. The 5 levels are survive, escape, reverse control, and submission, position. So keep a record. Make sure your training is planned. And what I've done too, I'll just show you here. See, there's an example. Can you see that? You see at the top of the little circle. That tells you, was it a Shin-Gi Tai focus? Was it focused on the body, the technique, or mind stuff? And then you'll see next to that, tapped 7 times for a total of 35 out of 50. Is that in focus? And below that, I've got Kumite with a blank line, number of rounds of Kumite, and out of 50. So it's very easy with a logbook to keep an accurate track of where you are on the 7 stages of Kumite. It really makes it very, very easy. Keep a record. Make sure your training plan is measurable. For example, 50 kata, 50 rounds, 50 taps, 50 reps of one technique or a combination in a set time. 2, goals and results are crystal clear. Yes or no. Session goals achieved? Yes or no. Numbers reached? Yes or no. Don't be vague about that. Your training plan is also controlled by you. Take ownership of what you can control. Be accountable. No excuses. Share your goals with a trusted training partner so they help you stay on track. Be accountable. Otherwise, it is too easy to abandon everything. Points to consider. Where will you be at the end of this training block? Be specific. For example, I understand the movements, have drilled the key transitions, and can perform Pinam 2, as an example, with excellence and sharpness in 3 months from today. And you write 3 months from this date. Or I have mastered Miyagi to an excellent level and can explain the key points perfectly. Write it in present tense and date it. So that's what you do when you set up your goals. 2, Kihon. Return to at least some basic key skills every day. Footwork, rhythm, key punches and kicks key movement principles, key flows, escapes, and finishes. Help your training partner reach his goals too. Be loyal to your team. Loyalty is important and provides long-term benefits. Maximal results come by helping others also reach their goals. Act, be consistent, maintain the forward momentum, and you'll never slip back to old levels. Work on your skills and the right mindset will come. If you work on your mindset above working on your skills, you might get nowhere fast. A lot of people talk about how good they are. A lot of people imagine that they've done a whole lot more training, but this logbook keeps you accountable. You can actually look at it and go, well, I thought I did 400 of those. Actually, I did 30, and it's honest. It keeps you honest. And I can tell you now, I don't have this logbook going back, but I have records going back to about 1980 and some of the training that I've done. And it's really quite enjoyable to go back and realize that whilst I wasn't ever in the Guinness Book of Records for anything, what I have done is maintained a degree of consistency. Os Bogdan, good to see you. Good morning. Dzień dobry. Okay. Map your reality. Know where you are before you head for where you know where you are before you head to where you want to be. How's your current skill level and strategy? Ask your instructor and training partners for input. Their views help too. Use video. Look at your strengths and shortcomings in Shingitai as well as your attitude towards training. Use the next page to record everything so that you can get started on a clear map. Revisit this every 3 months and reassess and adjust. So, and on the next page there, I've just got a space where you can actually honestly assess yourself. So that's just the first few pages of the logbook. And what it does, it really gives you a really good insight to the planning process. So anyway, that's those few pages of the logbook. If you got any commenting, let me know. Don't forget too, Patreon family, thank you so much. I'm really excited because I'm now working with a couple of guys who are helping me put together my websites, and I'm using everything that the Patreon family contributes for that website. And I'm really excited. I think it's going to be pretty good. So thank you. That means the Budo Karate Masayama order page will be up very quickly. And so, like I said, I really appreciate everyone's kindness. Most people here are part of the Patreon family, and I really appreciate that because I know it's a commitment each month. Someone sent me a video fighting back in the mid-70s. In my mind, I was so much it was filmed on Super 8. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's some great old video on Super 8, but Super 8 can fade. So if you can get it on a digital quickly, that's a good thing as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go on. I'm going to read a section of my new book, which the Budo Blueprint Training Log. You see the Budo Blueprint Training Log book is the log book that actually goes with the Budo Blueprint, which is my fairly expansive guide on my training principles. And right now, even as I write it, it's nearly 400 pages long of small copies. So I'm talking to my graphic designer buddy right now, and we're even thinking of dividing this into 3 sections, and no points for guessing what those 3 sections will be. Facts always ruin good memories. Yeah, I've heard some amazing stories about myself, but I know the facts, so they're nothing like the stories. Boy, oh boy. Okay, so let's go on this. I'm going to read from the Budo Blueprint. There's a whole section on tournaments and tournament prep and so on, and I'm just going to read this section. I may go back and read over some other parts too, but let me just go through this first. This section is called Ask the Right Questions. So in the Tao Te Ching, verse 81, I quote from, it says, words of truth are not pleasing. How about that? What a coincidence. Because like Torbjörn just said, facts always ruin good memory, good timing. So the first thing I read from the book was, words of truth are not pleasing. Pleasing words are not truthful. The wise one does not argue. He who argues is not wise. A wise man of Tao, Tao, as you may know, means the way, like karate do. Let me just do that Tao for you, just for fun. So we've got the kanji of it. I've got my pad again. So that's Do or Tao. So when you talk about Taoism, that's the kanji that they use, Tao. A wise man of Tao knows the subtle truth and may not be learned. A learned person is knowledgeable but may not know the subtle truth of Tao. A saint does not possess and accumulate surplus for personal desire. The more he helps others, the richer his life becomes. The more he gives to others, the more he gets in return. The Tao of nature benefits and does not harm. The way of a saint is to act naturally without contention. Okay? So that's just the prologue for this section called Ask the Right Questions. Tao Te Ching, that's correct, Tigray. Yes, that's correct. When I was 17, I lived in Japan and trained with my mentor, Masoyama. The famous Ikebukuro dojo was full of students coming and going all day, training in one of the 3 daily sessions. It was competitive and, for a young and inexperienced lad in an unfamiliar environment, sometimes intimidating. In time, I got to be friends with many of the students as we trained hard and challenged each other's skills. There was one instructor, Matsuda Toru Senpai, whose kicks were both beautiful and fearsome. He knocked people out at will. His arrogant sense of superiority was amusing. Now, I have to say, it was only amusing when I was on my way home from training on the Shinkansen, on the Yamanote train. It wasn't amusing when it was happening. Okay, it was quite intimidating. He knocked people out at will. His arrogant sense of superiority was amusing. He would sometimes admire his own reflection in the mirror as he casually knocked out another sparring partner. I didn't laugh at the time. One day he said to me, "How would you beat me?" I wasn't sure what the point of the question was, and having seen the beatings he had dished out to some, I wasn't planning a challenge quite yet. I replied, "I don't know." He laughed and said, "That is what you should ask every day. Look at your reflection in the mirror and ask yourself, how would I beat me?" When you know how you would beat yourself in Kumite, you know what you need to do to improve. That's one of the most powerful things that I was ever taught. So ask yourself the same question. How would I beat me? What are your strengths, your weaknesses, your average skills that haven't been drilled enough to work well with under pressure? This is your starting point for every training plan. No one knows you as well as you do. If you had to face yourself in a competition, what would your plan A be? What would your pre-match strategy be? Which areas of your game would you really focus on in training to beat you? Which areas would you not feel threatened by at all? Pretend you are an opponent. I'm just increasing the font size. Pretend you are an opponent sitting and discussing a match against you with his instructor. What would they be discussing? How's your flexibility? Your stamina, your body conditioning? Do you transition fast in certain flows but not in others? Are you fast? What do you project with your presence? How's your balance, posture? What weapons are you taking to the battlefield? And what would you do to counter those weapons? This kind of honest self-reflection will help to reveal exactly what you need to be focusing on in your training plan. It clarifies your reality. It doesn't mean, for example, that you give up if you are simply not an outstanding kicker with incredible flexibility. What it does mean, though, is that you absolutely must address any shortcomings in your strategic plan by either making your weaknesses strengths or developing a strategy to counter an assault on that weakness. If you are not not effective or not strong enough in some area, you can be sure that your opponent knows and will be creating a strategy around those weaknesses. So addressing those shortcomings in your training plan is smart. Get comfortable confronting your reality. Mastery is removing all obstacles and blockages, physical, mental, technical, emotional, and spiritual. And the main obstacles are those of the ego. We are very good at avoiding questions we may not like the answers to, or situations that expose our emotional extremes. Yet there is no quicker way to overcome weakness than taking ownership of them by asking the right questions. My uncle used to say, if you don't like the answer, don't ask the question. Asking the right questions means learning to accept the answers, no matter how uncomfortable they may appear to be. Don't take anything personally. With the right attitude, every answer is a learning experience. That is one reason why using video as a training tool is so valuable. The ego is a non-starter. The video hides nothing, and all strengths and weaknesses are revealed without prejudice or emotional charge. Opening the door to an honest search for mastery is not always pleasant, but you can get used to it. And when you do, it is as though a veil is lifted forever. Boss Big G, thanks for coming along. Good to see you. So, the question, how would I beat me? Asking the right questions means putting aside the ego, the fear of looking or feeling uncomfortable or minimized. In training, the art of asking the right questions means you are seeking the ways you can be defeated, not the ways you can win. One good question to begin each training session with is, which one principle can I work on right now that will have the biggest impact on my skills? You want to know the ways an opponent can unsettle your rhythm, break your balance, disturb your timing, and interrupt your control. And with a little honest reflection, it is easy to see how that is primarily a mental issue. Most of us seek approval and assurance of what we are doing right. Instead, think carefully about what you're not doing right. Find holes in your game. Remember we talked about the Cohen key, finding the gaps in your game. There's a gap in everything. That's how the light gets in. You know that song from Leonard Cohen. Seek to reveal your weaknesses. What are you doing wrong? Because if you don't, your opponent will at the most inconvenient time. Ask, how would I beat me? What would I do to beat me? What are my weaknesses? How would I take advantage of those weaknesses? These are the exact questions your opponent is asking about you. Consider this scenario. You recruit the very best trainer in the world to prepare you for a major tournament 3 months from now. What would that trainer do? What would be his initial process of assessing your current state? And based on that assessment, what would be the key areas of focus in the daily training he would have you do? What would the 3-month training program look like? Would it be an 80-20? What would be the 80-20s, the points of focus to optimize your body, mind, and technique? He'd use what would be the 80-20s he'd use in the time available? That is what you need to ask yourself every day, and that requires honest and humble attitude. When you look at beginners, what do you notice of them doing wrongly? Where do they misdirect their time and energy? See, I've actually been approached numerous times. I've been approached numerous times by people wanting me to train them for everything from Kyokushin to kickboxing to MMA. And the first thing I do is I assess them mentally. I don't really care about their technique because, we know that a strong mind can overcome technique. If their technique is completely inefficient, that's a different thing. But the first thing I look for is, are they mentally in the right place? Or are they just looking for someone to baby them along and cradle them through their own mental inefficiencies? And more than once, I've just said, look, I'm just a little busy. I'm sorry, I can't get there. Because if the mind's not willing to change, then no amount of technique will help. An honest and revealing inquiry is uncomfortable for many. Many more senior students, entrenched in a set training routine and the rigid hierarchy of the traditional dojo, are unwilling or unable to change, and this blunt and candid inquiry is often too much. Many, in fact, avoid asking the hard questions altogether and never make the small but beneficial changes needed. They say, don't fix what ain't broke. They say, don't fix what ain't broke. But they often don't realize how broken their training approach really is. Yet the honest inquiry is so important. It shakes up the status quo, breaks down long-held erroneous beliefs, and forces established and common training routines to be questioned. And that can be inconvenient, but by not asking the hard questions, we never get to face our reality as a fighter. We are not acknowledging our truth, the truth of what we are. We are trying to live an idea of ourselves, the life of someone we are not, someone better than we really are. Take ownership and acknowledge your true self, not the image based on the titles you've won or the stripes on your belt you may have earned many years ago. With humility and patience, tremendous improvements can be made very quickly. Refocus your training. Ask questions that reveal what doesn't work. Don't hide in the comfort zone of what you think does. Steve Jobs said, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by a dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. So that's that section. I've just got one little bit more. Introspection begets wisdom. That's correct. Sorry, I was listening. No, never translated. Okay. Look, and one little section at the end of that is titled Balancing Training and Inquiry. If during your martial arts life you have trained in different dojos or in different styles, you will have seen how some schools train extremely hard every single session, but don't research the key principles behind the movements they practice. You will have also seen that some dojos and styles don't train anywhere near hard enough, instead spending the training time analyzing and discussing technique to the finest detail, sometimes infatuating over how superior their technique is, a certain shortcut to training inadequacy. The key is finding the balance between the two extremes, training hard intelligently. Some sessions can be a beast mode physical smashing. Others can be a dive into research and analysis. Most sessions should have a relative balance of both. This is an expression of Shingi Tai. Training honestly will give you the experience of knowing the right balance from session to session. The right balance will vary from time to time for both good and bad reasons. It can be affected by such influences as responsibilities and pressures from work or family, proximity to the tournaments and gradings, age, injury, and time restraints. Live with the unavoidable instabilities of training, and remember that training is always about making sure tomorrow's session is the best it can be. So the swings affecting today's training will smooth out enough. Okay, that's just that little added section there. If you've got any comments, let me know. But I think it's really, really important to address this, because what it does, it ties in really well too with the logbook, because this section here entitled "Where Am I Now?" That's what you use to map out your reality. And by doing that, you're able to create a more honest approach to training. And I can't tell you what a difference it makes. Kyokushin, particularly Kyokushin, and not everyone hears Kyokushin, but Kyokushin people in particular almost have a blind faith in the training program. And there is no doubt that if you follow the protocols well, then you will get results. But we're talking about a trajectory. You know, how much time have you got, for crying out loud? Well, I don't have a lot of time left. So if this is there's your time and improvement trajectory. And if you follow the normal patterns, there is no doubt that you'll get a reasonably steady improvement. But if you optimize training, and if you ask the right questions, and if you're honest with yourself, and one of the reasons people's trajectory doesn't change is because they're not honest with themselves. They just literally would prefer that their weaknesses aren't revealed. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, if you're honest with yourself, you keep a logbook so that you're clear about your trajectory, and you keep a track of the number of things, well, then what happens is literally this starts to happen. And so over the same period of time, you start to see huge changes. And this is why some people can get to a high level much quicker, simply because they're making a lot more sense of the training that they're doing, you know. And that's what that section of the book addresses. They were asking the right questions. So I hope, Gaza said he had to go. So I hope, I hope you find that interesting. It really is valuable. And the book, the logbook ties in really well with the Budo Blueprint book as well. Good on you, Patty. I can always trust you to bring support when everyone goes dead silent. That's okay. I do have this section on tournament planning and preparation too, but I think I'll save that till next time because it's quite long. And if I start it now, I won't be able to finish in time. So I'm really excited about the content of this book. I'm really excited about the Budo Karate of Maso Oyama. Yep. Well, that's what it is. You've got to have clear objectives. Hoshin. Hoshin. Is that it? I think that's Shin. No, that's Hoshin, I'm pretty sure. That's the correct attitude, yeah. It's Chris. Good to see you, man. So anyway, look, today's a little shorter than normal. I have training at the dojo, so I have to leave soon. I, for one, can understand where you're coming from, going through what you're saying right now. Yeah, you are actually, and just forget everything. Forget it. Just don't worry about your expectations. Create real expectations, and I think that'll make a big difference to your training, and also the way people in the dojo treat you as well. The Budo Karate boy, oh boy, you've got to see some. I wish I could show you, but I won't. I found all my old illustrations and I'm doing a series of new ones. And oh man, you've got to see some of the photos. My good buddy, Graham Munro, any Aussie Kyokushin guy who was around in the 80s knows Graham Munro. This guy was a classic. He was a professional photographer. He's what's called a Canon ambassador. And so he's right up there with Canon as a professional photographer. And he was fighting the Nationals in 82. He'd take photos and then they'd call his name up. He'd put his camera down on the side of the mat, go out and knock someone out, come back, take more photos. And he actually won the middleweight division of the 1982 Australian Championships. So there weren't a lot of photos of him because he was taking photos of everyone else. Yep, Al Bellamy, right there. Everyone can see his name. He's one of my students, and I failed him in a grading. And I think it was one of the best things that ever happened to him. I failed other people, and they turned. I've heard of people failing a second dan, getting so angry they didn't do it with me. They failed a second dan, got so angry, left their instructor and opened their own Kyokushin organization and made themselves a fifth dan. I mean, can you believe that? That's ridiculous. I also have another friend. I won't mention his name because he's fairly well known, but I graded him to second dan, and I refused to allow him to grade because it was all talk. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean he was all talk. He trained consistently, but there was a lot of talk about his second dan, but he just wasn't ready. And I said to him, no, you're not ready. You're not second dan level. And his reaction was, Us, what have I got to do? And so we worked on his insufficiencies, and he just doubled up everything, doubled the right attitude, the approach, everything he was doing, he got right. And by the time the next grading came where he was able to do his second dan, he actually did that portion of his grading better than anyone else. And Al there, you see my buddy Al Bellamy, he's in the same boat. He failed, and he just hammered and nailed his insufficiencies. And when he came back for his grading, it was like everyone is going, my God, is that the same person? It was just cheese and chalk. And it just goes to show how valuable it was for him to fail that. Okay. And his karate has been on point ever since. Yeah, see you, Paddy. Good on you, man. I'll speak soon. Love your work. My dojo, Big G, still at Currumbin. Still at the, oops, I'm in Japanese mode there. Put the address for you. That's where we are. But anyway, and I'm also up in Mountain 3 days a week as well at Tamborine Mountain. Urs Leo, good to see you. Greetings. Yep. Did you fail the grading, Mike? I never failed the grading, but I have to say Frank would hold me back because I was so, I mean, I have to say, and I'm not saying this to impress anyone, I don't care, but I was training at the dojo 7 days a week, 7 days, not 6 days, 7 days a week. I was bubbling with this energy that had to be burnt up, and it was my whole focus and center of that energy. And we had 3 dojos that I used to train at. My parents finally threw in the towel and said, enough's enough. I'm not going to take you to the dojo anymore. So I was hitchhiking from one end of the Gold Coast to the other. 9 times out of 10, it was the karate guys that had seen me and picked me up. Every now and then I get picked up by someone I don't know. I remember once I was hitchhiking from Surface where I lived to Miami, to the Bora Ring of Miami, and this car pulled up, and in those days the highway still had gravel. Would you believe the Gold Coast highway had gravel on the side of the road? So they pull up and I jump in, and there's like a couple of hippies on their way to Byron Bay or something. You go, hey man, how you doing, man? I'm this little 15-year-old kid. Yeah, I'm good. Good. Where you going, man? Oh, I'm going to karate training down at Miami. Oh, cool, man. He says, you don't have a joint, do you? I'm a 15-year-old school kid. You don't have a joint, do you, man? I said, no, I don't. He says, oh, that's cool. I got one, eh? And he pulls out a joint and he's going, you want some? I go, no, I'm good, thanks. Anyway, by the time we got to the front of the dojo, they're tearing along at 60 kilometers an hour, 35 zone back then, 35 miles an hour. They're doing about 45. And finally, I said, oh, that's where I'm getting off, just there. It was coming fast. And so he goes, I said, yeah, just here, just here. So he pulls off the highway right into the gravel and does a handbrake slide. And he goes, like this. And I'm going, whoa. And I said, you could drop me at the side of the highway. As he did that, the guy's girlfriend goes, man, he said next to the road, not, what did he say? He said next to that building, not in it. It was so funny. These guys were a couple of hippies, and I just got out of that car. There was, man, some of the experiences I had with hitchhikers. But anyway, look, I was training 7 days a week. So I think I was progressing really solidly. But Frank saw through that. My instructor, Frank, he realized that a lot of my progress was actually not the progress I really needed. I was fit and strong and healthy, so I was getting all the movements down. My fitness was right up there. My kata were great, but Frank knew I needed more kumite because I was a little kid, so I was a little intimidated by these big, strong adults. And I remember one of my good mates, Pete Smith, who still trains today, man. This guy's like in his 70s, and he was there. I was about 15. And he's gone whack and hit me, and oh, man, I didn't need that. And I got a tear in my eye. I said, you're not meant to be hitting the head. And he just gave it to me. He just, he says, no, you don't, grow up, don't. And he gave it to me verbally. And at the time, I'm going, oh, what's going on here? But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I realized later, because I needed to harden up. And that was a really valuable experience. He just went whack. He didn't give a stuff, and I was so upset. But I was upset ego-wise. I wasn't upset because I was hurt. It's not like he tried to knock me out. Anyway. Where are we? Yeah, thanks, Leo. Good on you. Some of the best lessons came from being told I was not. Yeah, good on you, Rochelle. That's true. Hunchy Steve also tells in some of his interviews, also that's failed him on his first black belt attempt. Now look where he's at. Yes, exactly. Boom, gradings and promotions are a privilege, not a right. Exactly, they are indeed. You failed your Sun Q and then years later, Sun done. Well, that's very cool, actually. Good on you. And I guarantee that as a result of that, you came back stronger and better. While on the topic, what kata relates for a first Q grading? It depends, Herman, I have to say. It depends from country to country, place to place. In ours, I've got a feeling it's probably Seienshin, Sanshin. I know it's Sanshin, Tensho, and probably Seienshin for your first Q. Could be wrong, but that sounds like it's about right. We had Xian Fitkin as the examiner at the club when I was a youngster. He hardly failed anyone because the ones that were not ready were not allowed to even try. That's true, Torbjörn. That's the correct approach. This is what I do to avoid loss of face or avoid the difficulty of saying to someone, sorry, you failed. I just literally say to people, in fact, last year, now with the COVID virus, things are changing again. But last year there was someone wanted to do a grading, a high grading. I just said, no, you're not ready. And off they go. They're doing their hard work for it. So thank you very much, folks. I'll wind it up there. It's 4:00. I appreciate your time. I hope that was reasonably valuable. Hope you got something out of it. I love reading the stuff in the book because even as I read it, I enjoy the message that is trying to come across. Thanks, everyone. Yes, Brian Fitcomb is a... Oh, look, while I got you, thinking of that, check this photo we're putting in the book. See if I can show it to you. I'll see if I can find it. And here we go. My friend, I mentioned Graham Munro, the photographer. He has very kindly offered a number of photos, his original photos, so they've never been in a book before. Some great photos, man. Look, I'm just scrolling through them. Look at these photos of Solsai. and they'll be in the book. See, but there is one really good photo, and this is it here. See that? Now, I mentioned Brian Fitkin. We'll see over here, that's Cunny. Oh, can't touch my screen. There we go. So from this side, there, Kaneyama, one of the Japanese fighters, and next to him is Brian Fitkin. That's Sensei Shihan Brian Fitkin there. And then in the middle is Dolph Lundgren. And then next to him is Brian Ellison. And in Australia, Brian Ellison's a real legend. He was one of my instructors. My main instructor was Frank Everett, and Brian moved from Victoria to the Gold Coast and opened a dojo at Coolangatta. So I used to hitchhike down to Coolangatta once every week or 2 weeks. And then next to him, that there is Yamaki Kenji, who went on to become the 6th world tournament, where my own student Gary and Wally, Gary came 4th in that tournament, and Wally came he made the final 16 and won the Tameshi Wari Award. But anyway, that's a great photo, and that'll be in the book as well. So it's funny you mentioned Dolph and Brian Fitkin. Merci, Francis. Good on you. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Rochelle, thanks again. Good on you. Paul Kniep, good on you. Dankeschön, mein Freund. Raj Kumar, namaste. Thanks for coming. Dhanebat, all the way from Nepal. Frederick, thank you very much. Tag, thank you. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Good on you. Yeah, it's a great photo. Some good photos. And wait till you see some of the others. That's just that one. But we're now looking at a beautiful photo of Solsai, which we're thinking so that we can separate the first edition, the second edition, putting a different photo of Solsai in the front. We may or may not, but it's a beautiful photo, and no one's ever seen it. Okay, have a good one. Us, Torbjörn. Thanks, man. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Us.